Good evening, friends. Today we will have our psychology lecture 7. We'll start with a new chapter which is called Methods of Psychology. Earlier we have done the introduction chapter. We understood it threadbare thoroughly. First chapter took time to complete because we had to generate interest in psychology. We had to understand its major themes, the perspectives which the psychology discipline has traveled, why psychology is a scientific discipline, what are its applications, how psychology can solve the societal problems, where psychology lies if we compare it with different natural sciences and social sciences, what are the recent trends, especially the 21st century trends, which define the discipline of psychology. After having understood that psychology is a scientific discipline, as we have seen, because the methodology of studying the objective of psychology, the concern of psychology, that is human behavior and mental processes. Human behavior which are overtly available, which we can measure, observe directly, and the covert processes which cannot be seen overtly, cannot be observed overtly, but of course these processes shape the human behavior. These processes are an important factor as far as the cognitive psychology department is concerned. So having seen the utility of scientific methods, so we'll study within methods of psychology the types of research. Then we'll study the methods of research. Types of research and methods of research. Our prime focus here is on research. Why? When we talk about methods of psychology, we believe that the psychology is a scientific discipline, so its methods will be research oriented. They are not based on the folk wisdom that we have understood. We are not talking about the common sense or intuition or the folk wisdom, but psychology talks about the scientifically validated universal theories which are based on objectivity, skepticism, accuracy and universalism. These four grounds on which psychology claims to be science, you must remember where psychology lies, very close to the natural sciences and moving closer to the natural sciences with the incidence and growing intensity of infusion of the technologies like artificial intelligence, natural language processing, NLP, the use of physiological and medical sciences technique, the cognitive revolution which defined psychology in an altogether different light, where psychology was not only seen as a mere discipline which studies the observable behaviors but mental processes also, but in an experimental manner, through the lab oriented, research oriented manner, where the mind of human being is compared to the computers. Now we'll see other parts of this chapter. Methods of psychology consists of types of research, methods of research, the types of research, different types of research. They will be your descriptive, evaluative, diagnostic and prognostic. We'll see all of them. Then the methods of research will consist of the survey, case study, questionnaire, interview. These are the methods of research. Then we'll come to important aspect which gives psychology a label of scientific discipline is experimental design, non-experimental design, and quasi-experimental design. What are its characteristics? Its examples, so that you find them easy. As I was interacting with one of the finest students of mine, he said that, sir, when I look at the syllabus, when I look at the approach you are following, I find psychology as an easier discipline. But when I look at the notes provided to me from one of the institutes, it confuses me. This is true. The syllabus is not confusing. The approach is confusing. Quasi-experimental design. These all will be the types. Then specifically mention topics like focused group discussion, grounded theory, and brainstorming. These are specifically mentioned in form of topics. Types of research, methods of research, experimental design, non-experimental design, quasi-experimental design, then focus group discussion, grounded theory approach, and your brainstorming. This finishes our topic. This finishes our syllabus. Now if you look at the question paper, UPSC has never asked anything beyond that. UPSC has not gone beyond the syllabus in any of the years. But for a few years where they started playing with the future of the students in year 2012, when they started lots of statistics question, that too those things which are not taught, but mind it, they are not taught, but some students were ready with that. How? Because they were taught by the right coach, one. Secondly, they were doing their own research as well. Then there was one question, linguistic vitality theory, which was asked in the 2022 paper. Apart from these rare incidents, rare examples, we find that generally UPSC keeps itself very close to the syllabus, and they are asking you the fundamental conceptual questions where you can apply your mind and reach to the answer. When it comes to main examination, the real challenge here is to understand the concepts, present your ideas in the right language, improve your presentation with a good handwriting, flowcharts and diagrams, plenty of examples, they are required. Having understood the dynamics of it, let us go into the topics. As I mentioned, under the methods of psychology, the first topic is types of research. And when we say types of research, we are talking about types of research in psychology. Most of the social science disciplines, they follow four types of research: descriptive, evaluative, diagnostic, and prognostic. Descriptive, evaluative, diagnostic, and prognostic. These are the four types of research which are used by most of the social science discipline, including psychology. Remember, psychology is like a social science, but the rigor of studying behavior is much more scientific as compared to many other social sciences. And as I have given you the comparison in the last class, if you compare it with medical sciences, you find that medical sciences give you only prescriptions. They are focused about the individualistic problems, they are focused about the physiological symptoms, but they don't understand that mind and body are connected. Mind body interactionism, which we have studied earlier, they are not bothered about that. So they cannot give the holistic picture as far as a person's sufferings are concerned. Even if the psychological department, mental health, the practice followed by most of the mental health departments was to ensure that the patient goes through a directive treatment, not a non-directive treatment which emerged of late, very late, humanistic, client-centered approach. Then if we compare psychology with anthropology, anthropology will talk about the evolution of the civilization, but it will not be able to give you the individualistic prescriptions. It will not be able to define the individual differences, which ensures that even if two people are suffering from alcoholism, they are treated differently in a different manner because these two have unique personalities. The individual differences are not appreciated. If you look at sociology, sociology will look at the social problems from the bird's eye view, but they will not reach to the individualistic level which psychology reaches to. So psychology is unique because of these reasons. Now, the four types of research which psychology follows, like most social sciences, are diagnostic, evaluative, descriptive, and prognostic. Descriptive, evaluative, diagnostic, prognostic. We'll see each and every one of them, their characteristics, their merits and demerits in a short while. First of all, what is research? What does research mean? When we talk about research, it is made up of two words, searching it again. That is, every discipline is in the search of universal theories, as we have already understood. Psychology is also in search of universal theories. But as psychology strives for scientific analysis, it is important to understand that psychology includes skepticism in it. So the theories which are already existing, they evolve through the research. These kind of research are called pure research or basic research. when the theories are regenerated, one theory is there, as I was talking about it earlier, mere exposure effect. That two people who have a general liking for each other meet in a comfortable environment and they keep on meeting. The fondness between these two keeps on growing. This is mere exposure effect. This is the theory, but this theory should not be stopped here only. There should be innovations which can bring new aspects of the theory. Like is mere exposure effect universal for all cultures? Can we say through cross-cultural studies, can we ascertain that mere exposure effect is valid? Is it valid for the Western as well as Eastern societies? Western societies have a different idea of self, that is, their people are quite independent, they are more critical in their approach. Eastern societies are having a collectivistic approach, that is, this is Western, this is Eastern. In Western societies, our idea about ourselves is separate from what the society thinks in general. This is society's thinking in general, and idea of self for each and every individual is different from what the society thinks. They are more rational, critical and independent, the people who are belonging to Western society. But in Eastern society, like India, our identity is embedded in the group, that is, the society. Whatever society thinks about us becomes more important to us. Now, for these two people, mere exposure effect will be definitely different. These kind of research, which is done just to make the theory better, just for the sake of research, they are called pure research, pure or basic. This research are not done so that it will be applied in a particular context. It may not have any application, no application may be there. They are just trying to reach another hypothesis which will be tested later on. But if the same research is done to see whether it is applicable in Africa, whether it is applicable in Malawi, a particular place, then if the kind of research is done to establish whether it will be applicable in Malawi or not, it will be called applied research. This research is not being done just to ensure evolution of the theory, just for the sake of evolution of the theory, but it has an objective. The objective is to see whether it is applicable in Malawi or not. Pure research, applied research. This is the basic difference. Now, we will again see this pure versus applied when we do the next chapter in detail. Firstly, we will go to our first type of research, that is called descriptive type of research. See, any research tries to answer few questions. What, when, how, why. What, when, where under one side, how and why another side. When the research is about what, when, where, that is, the research tries to describe the behavior or phenomena in a systematic manner, systematic and relatively objective manner, that is called your descriptive research, just describing things. For example, recently a major earthquake took place in Southeast Asia. An earthquake of the order of, on the Richter scale. There are lots of disturbances in the internet today, but we were talking about Southeast Asia incidence of earthquake, and because of which post-traumatic stress disorder occurred in a set of people in the area. Now the researcher wants to study the incidence of, objective is to study PTSD, that is called post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Researcher wants to study this in the people who were in the vicinity of this earthquake. The researcher will study what happened, when happened, where happened, what happened, when happened, where happened, the incidence of stress. But researcher is not bothered about the why and how it happened. This is the question researcher is interested into. This is the primary thing. Second thing, researcher did not control, researcher did not manipulation of IV, independent variable, that was earthquake. Definitely researcher is not in a capacity to manipulate the earthquake, it's a natural occurrence. IV was not manipulated, not done. The researcher further does not control any external variable. What was IV? It's your earthquake. What is DV? It's your PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. But in between that, there are so many other factors. difference between the genders, that is men, how do they cope with the stress? Men more private about their emotions, they don't share their emotional issues, especially in the patriarchal society. Women more open as far as their emotional feelings are concerned. There may be factors of economy. The people who are economically well off, they can cope with the stress easily. There may be factors of the availability of a peer group, several other factors. But the researcher is not controlling any of the external variable, not controlled. I have told you that there is IV, that is independent variable, it is manipulated. There is DV, dependent variable, which is measured, or controlling the variable EV. IV here is earthquake, which cannot be manipulated, of course. EV here are so many other factors. There may be, as I told you, researcher can take any variable as external variable. Suppose the researcher says that EV here is gender. Researcher could have controlled this EV. How? Researcher could have randomly divided the people in two groups. Both of them have the same percentage of gender, each gender. Men and women here, men and women here, having the same proportion of each gender, so that the average of men and women here in the experimental group is the same as control group. Control group, no manipulation will be brought. In external group, manipulation of IV can be brought. But the researcher here has not taken any external variable, so that cannot be controlled also. This is the second characteristic of these kind of research. Just describing the issue, just describing it, not giving you any suggestions. See, prescriptions are not done. They don't suggest what should be done, what is the way out. Then cause and effect. Cause and effect relationship is also not established, because this is not the objective of the researcher at all. No prescription is done, because again this research is only about describing things. Let us describe it in detail. Let us describe the incidents of post-traumatic stress disorder. What will researcher do then? What kind of things are happening in PTSD? Like things which are common are nightmares or night terror. Nightmares or night terror, where the people who have undergone post-traumatic stress disorder, they are disturbed. The dreams they see vividly represent what happened on that day. Because what would have happened? Somebody who is sleeping well, sleeping at night peacefully, or doing something joyful, reading some book, listening to music, or whatever joyful occurs to them at that time of night, they might be doing. Suddenly a loud thud outside, a very loud noise. After that everything is shaking. The fan is shaking, the table is shaking, the bed is shaking, everything is shaking like anything. Vigorous shaking happening. Suddenly some wall breaks down. Suddenly you see your very near and dear kith and kin, people whom you love, below a wall, unable to get up. So much of people's cries. Incidents of fire also happening somewhere. People running around here and there, stampede like situation. That image is there within the minds of the people, and they keep on vividly living that. That is nightmare, night terrors. They revisit the problem again and again, revisit. They are pessimistic in their orientation. They become helpless. Learned helplessness, because now they think that even if I do whatever I may do, but these incidents will keep on happening. These incidents will keep on happening. External locus of control, they think that I am not doing anything, I can't control anything. Fatalistic, everything is fate, everything is defined by fate, fate will define everything. External locus of control, they feel that they cannot control anything. Their self-esteem suffers. They are not able to cope with the day-to-day stressors, not able to carry their daily chores, daily activities. These things happen in PTSD. This is described vividly by the researcher. Vividly. But no prescription is done, no cause and effect analysis is done. Then, what researchers think about the description done here helps as a foundation stone for further research. Lays a foundation for further research. After the description of all the activities happening or all the characteristics of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because of the earthquake happening, when it has been defined, described vividly, what will happen? Now, in the next stage, another researcher or another set of researcher will come and try to find a cause and effect or correlation. As you know that cause and effect is different from correlation. In correlation, we find that as the age increases, incidence of PTSD increases. But it does not mean that the age is the cause of PTSD. With the growing age, people are unable to cope with the stress, and that's why PTSD occurs. But age is not the factor, and age is not the only factor. So definitive cause and effect cannot be established in correlational research. Correlational research will only give you this analysis. This is your age. These are the incidents of PTSD. Number of people having PTSD. As the age grows, people in 10-year age, 15-year age group, here 70-year age group, we find that most people are here, and this kind of graph is achieved, where with the growing age there are more incidents of PTSD. Correlational research, which we will study in the next chapter. Nothing great, not mathematical, just plain simple language will be used. Now, the correlational analysis is done by studying two variables when they vary with each other, when one changes in positive direction, the another one also changes in the same direction, then it is positive correlation. When one changes, suppose if that would have been the case, that as the age increases, the PTSD incidents are less, then this should have been the case. That is your negative correlation. But even in this case, there is no cause and effect analysis. So to establish the cause and effect thing, experiments are done through experimental design, which we will see later. Suppose by the analysis, by the description only, we found that out of all the factors, socioeconomic factors, socioeconomic status has more correlation with PTSD. That is, as the socioeconomic status becomes better, the PTSD becomes less. Then this factor can be studied as in an experimental design to establish a cause and effect relationship. That is, here IV, independent variable, is your SES, socioeconomic status. DV, dependent variable, is your PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. We will see with changing IVs what is the situation, what is the effect on post traumatic stress disorder. Three: low, medium, high economic status. Incidence of PTSD will be seen that the high economic status has lesser. This may be the case, but then it will be studied in an experimental manner. How? It will be varied, the socioeconomic status will be varied for different groups. Then the incidence of PTSD will be seen for various groups. That is, IV will be your SES and DV PTSD, and it will be able to provide you a definitive cause and effect relationship, that SES has not only correlation but causation for PTSD. That will be done in a lab experiment, in an experimental design, which we will see later the intricacies of it. So, further research can be established. Then what else are the characteristics of your descriptive research? Here you have to understand that what are the methods of data collection. In every types of research there is a method of data collection. The method of data collection here is survey, interview, case study, questionnaire. Survey, interview, case study, questionnaire. These are the methods of data collection. When we say data collection, what does it mean? In the interview, what will happen? All the people who are suffering from PTSD, they will be called by the researcher. They will be asked a set of questions, either pen and paper or verbal. They'll be asked to give their feedback. How stressed you feel? What are the problems happening to you? Have you gone to any counselor? These kind of questions. Survey. These questionnaires will be distributed to people. They will be asked to fill it. That will be your questionnaire method. And when the researcher goes to each and every house, asks a set of questions to each and every person, and finally gives the analysis, that is your survey. As you see, the post-poll survey, after the elections have happened, every news channel will say, okay, this party will win. Based on what? Based on what they have asked to the people who voted in the elections. After the voting, they will be asked this question. By going to each and every house, that will be your survey. Or a particular village will be taken and the case study will be done. These are the methods of data collection. Mind it that experiments are not mentioned here. In the descriptive research, experiments are not mentioned as a method of data collection. Experiments are a method of data collection in another type of research which we will see later, that is evaluative. Not descriptive but evaluative type of research, where the intervention which is done by the researcher in form of manipulation of independent variable, its effect is seen. So experiments are also a data collection method, but that is not used in a descriptive type of research. This is your descriptive research. And how it will be useful in your examination? Again, you understand what is descriptive type of research. Have few points as I have mentioned here. What are its basic characteristics? The example, the merit, it can be done easily within where. What is the merit here? The biggest merit is ease of doing research. It is so easy. Any incident has happened, you have to put your field people, those who will go into the field, do survey, ask the questions through interview and distribute questionnaire, or will study a particular set of people, a particular location through the method of case study. It can be done, descriptive research can be done through naturalistic observation. So in the naturalistic setting, we don't have to tamper with the setting. Artificiality is not needed. Is not brought. Artificiality is not brought into the research. In a naturalistic setting, observation is done, various methods of research are followed, various methods of data collection is used, and then finally it is described and left. That's it. That is its merit. The merit is that it lays down the foundation for further research. Foundation for further research is laid. This is the merit. And these are the merits. And these merits are enough. What is the demerit? The biggest demerit? Not prescriptive. No definitive cause and effect relationship definitive cause and effect relationship is not established. No prescription is given. These are the demerits. Now, with this conceptual understanding, example, merit and demerit, you can write a 10 marker for sure, 15 marker also, 20 marker will not come for this particular topic. You can give more examples from your own side. See, the research is done by Piaget. John Piaget. Some people call them Jean also, John Piaget. So Piaget, what he observed children growing, described the method through which they are growing in an orderly fashion. Going through different stages of cognitive development, but that described it. These are descriptive research. They are not establishing any cause and effect relationship. They are not giving you any prescription. Evaluative type of research, evaluative research, as the name suggests itself, they evaluate the effect of what? Of an intervention. And when we say intervention, in the evaluative type of research, the researcher is evaluating the effect of an intervention or a policy, like as we were talking about children from disadvantaged section or disadvantaged learners. There are children who are disadvantaged learners. When we are saying disadvantaged learners, primarily we are talking about two things, the IQ and the situation of disadvantage because of the socio-economic status. Children may be belonging to lesser IQ group of students, and they may come from a low socio-economic status, where they have been disadvantaged. There may be prolonged deprivation through generations. As I told you, prolonged deprivation through generations means, as we were discussing in one or the other class, that prolonged deprivation through generations means disadvantage. Now, these children are there, and the researcher wants to study, evaluate the effect of programmed learning on them. When the researcher is interested in studying the effect of programmed learning, the researcher is interested in evaluating the effect of programmed learning. Now, two groups will be there. One will be your control group, another one will be your experimental group. In this group, programmed learning will be introduced. In this group, no special education will be introduced. Then we'll see the effect, the performance of this group will be compared with the performance of the experimental group. Here the mean, average, the mean of these two will be taken. Mean of control group, mean C, mean of experimental group, mean E. Average, mean means nothing, it's an average, that's it, not making anything unnecessarily complex. Then we'll see the difference. The average of experimental group minus the average of control group, it will give us the sense of what was the effect of program learning. And larger is the difference, more is the effect, and that is what is called nothing but the effect size, which we'll study as a separate concept in our statistics in the next chapter. But here I have introduced you the concept so that it gets repeated and you understand the context again and again repeating it. Effect size or statistical power. The essence of effect size or statistical power is this only: significance of the treatment brought. Effect size or statistical power gives you nothing but the significance of treatment brought. That's it. Even if you state this statement and give the example, the examiner will give you marks. But unfortunately, it is made so complex that students are running away. Stats running away. Stats, or in fact, the whole psychology has been made so complex. The reason behind it is nobody is ready to simplify. The process of UPSC examination is also very simple if there are right coaches. Evaluative research, this is how it is done. So this was just an example. Let us understand the characteristics of evaluative research. Evaluative research characteristics. First and foremost, here the researcher is not bothered about the what, when, where, but how and why. How and why of the research is answered. How and why? What does it mean? How does the treatment affect The outcome, why the experimental group performed better with the inclusion of program group, program learning in their education. What happened? That is evaluated here. How and why is the focus now, not what, when and where. First thing. Secondly, suppose the same research was being done by a researcher in a descriptive research method, then what will they describe? They will describe that program learning was used and because of that these things happened. Pappu Hatela, Anwar Pakila, they all performed well because of the program learning used, but they will not give any prescription, they will not justify how it happened, why it happened. They will not give any prescription. Here, what is happening? We are trying to establish cause and effect relationship. And as you might have understood by now, when we are trying to establish the cause and effect relationship in an objective manner, it is nothing but experiments. Experiments are used as method of data collection. Experiments are used as method of data collection. Experiments, and when we say experiments, it means IV manipulation. Experiments means what? IV is manipulated, external variable EV is controlled. How EV is controlled, by the way? Nothing. EV is controlled through what? Randomization. What is randomization? Randomly selecting people. There are so many disadvantaged children. They have different gender, different caste, creed, origin, that is which region they belong to, their language, many other factors, but they are randomly mixed and then selected, divided into two halves. Randomization, random sampling. What is sample? That is, a set of students will be selected from the whole lot. That technique of choosing will be random sampling. We will understand various techniques of sampling when we study sampling, but this is called random sampling. And random sampling means nothing. EV control, external variable is controlled, because all other factors which would have affected the IV-DV relationship, they are all equally distributed to every group. So how does it affect? Even if it affects, it will affect equally all the groups, that is experimental group and control group. And if it is affecting equally all the groups, then it is not a factor, because it's randomly available. It's not a factor anymore. Experiments are used as the method of data collection as compared to survey, questionnaire, interview, case study done in descriptive research. Now, where do these experiments take place? These experiments, that is the evaluative research, mind it. The evaluative research can take place in lab, that is controlled environment, and natural settings both. Lab environment and natural settings both. It is not necessary that all the experiments take place in the lab and controlled environment only. In the naturalistic settings also, simulation, copy of lab-like situation can be made, but largely, generally, the experimental methods and evaluative research takes place in the lab environment, because there is greater control of EV, more scope of IV manipulation, and DV can be effectively, objectively measured. Thereby, the IV-DV relationship can be objectively, effectively, efficiently, economically ascertained. If you write this in the examination with these examples, this is more than enough. The examiner is happy with this. The thing is that you give so many things because of the matter which you are studying, which is too useless, too much. If you are given a precise material and you are explained things, everybody can score 300 plus in psychology. There can be, out of 1000 people who get selected finally, there can be 200 from psychology itself. That used to be a case earlier, but unfortunately, the disservice done by some people have made psychology like this. Moving further, what are the other characteristics of evaluative research? As we must have understood by now, when the cause and effect relationship is established, definitely it is prescriptive in nature. That is, it will give you a prescription that use program learning. If you have to use the energy of disadvantaged children in an efficient manner, then use program learning. But there are certain demerits also. These are the characteristics. The merit, the biggest merit being prescriptive nature. They give a solution. Definite cause and effect, relationship established, prescriptive in nature, definite cause and effect relationship established. But there are demerits. What are the demerits? First is your artificiality. Artificiality is brought in the experiment because of the nature of the research. Most of the research, evaluative research, are done in lab experiments and in lab setting. That is why there is artificiality. That is, in the naturalistic setting, there may be other factors affecting. Suppose there are disadvantaged section children who are taught by a teacher who carries them to a national park on a tour, he or she, and then the teacher explains biodiversity by including the natural flora and fauna from the environment itself. But in the lab setting, we cannot study all these things, so artificiality will affect it. Then, if you look at the nature of the experiment, evaluative research, it is resource intensive. When we say research is resource intensive, it means lots of manpower, lots of money, lots of infrastructure, they all will be used. Resource intensive, artificial and resource intensive. That itself suggests that in most of the cases it is not easy to go for the evaluative research. That is why researcher generally chooses descriptive research. We will move to the third type of research, which is called diagnostic research. Again, as the name suggests, diagnosis. What is diagnosis? Diagnosis is establishing the reasons, establishing the causes. When you go to a doctor that I am suffering from this and this, the doctor, suppose you say I am thirsty most of the time, I am tired most of the time, I am unable to get good sleep at night, my sleep is disturbed like anything. These are the symptoms. The doctor will try to establish the causes behind it. The underlying cause is because there is incidence of high blood sugar in your blood. Because of that, you are not able to digest or not able to absorb the nutrients properly into your body. Because of that, you are not able to get good sleep, because melatonin is not forming in your body. You are full of stress because serotonin is not released. It's all the game of nothing but chemical locha. Let me give you one insight. Whatever happens in your body is because of the imbalances of these nutrients. If you get it corrected, nothing will happen to you. So take care of your nutrition. So you go to the doctor, diagnosis is done, this. If you are suffering from high blood sugar incidence from a large period of time, since a large period of time, then they may diagnose you with diabetes mellitus type 2 or type 1, depending upon the intensity and the history. If it is since childhood, it is type 1. If it has occurred only after you become adult or since a few years, it is type 2. So the researcher here is running after the causes behind a problem. Generally, these type of research are done to diagnose the reasons behind a disorder. Somebody is suffering from the schizophrenic disorder, schizophrenia. The researcher in diagnostic type of research will diagnose the causes, that is genetic causes and precipitating, that is environmental causes. Genetic causes predominate in the case of schizophrenia. Genetic causes or genetic factors predominate in case of constructs like intelligence. A person is genetically endowed with the intelligence. Environment has lesser role to play. Likewise, in schizophrenia, genetics plays a major role. Precipitating factors also play a role. Suppose somebody carries the genes which make her susceptible to schizophrenia. Susceptibility to schizophrenia. Kangana Ranaut appears to be a fit case for this. Appears to be schizophrenic in her behavior. Not sure about the genetics. Now, the precipitating factors: 12 flops, 12 movie flopped, under huge stress, debt, stress, identity crisis may happen, whether I am a politician or an actor, whether I should support a party or I should focus on my work. She may display the behaviors of schizophrenia. Delusion, faulty belief system, hallucination, and illusion that might be displayed by her. When the researcher is looking at the factors, underlying factors, why did she go to this kind of situation, then it is diagnostic research. Diagnosis is being done. Likewise, a study was done about the behavior of the criminals to evaluate, to rather diagnose that what is the reason or what are the reasons behind criminal behavior. Underlying causes. Again, it's a diagnostic research. Diagnosis is being done. And what is the characteristic of these research? First and foremost, characteristics of diagnostic research: why a problem occurred, focus on the underlying causes, why a problem occurred or why a disorder occurred, why disorders happened, why people with a certain brain structure are alcoholic. This is diagnostic research. Then, what are the methods of data collection here in diagnostic research? Here, the method of data collection is interesting. The method of data collection here are factor analysis, correlation, correlational and regressional analysis, correlation analysis and regression analysis, CNR. How What will happen in factor analysis? FA, factor analysis. There is a whole set of data, that is, these can be the causes, these are the causes. They will be grouped into, this is group 1, group 2, likewise. These will be factors. Finally, only a few factors will be found. Suppose there are 3 factors. Why Kangana Ranaut became schizophrenic? One factor, her genetic makeup, G, genetic makeup, her closeness to a party, P, and so many flops, GPF. These factors, 3 factors defined her failure and she became schizophrenic through factor analysis or through correlation and regression. Correlation, on this axis breakup with certain people, and on this axis incidents of schizophrenia in Kangana Ranaut. These are your incidents, these are your breakups. We may find these dots. Hrithik Roshan's role may be higher in her schizophrenic behavior. Correlation analysis. We are finding a correlation between the breakups and the incidence of schizophrenia in Kangana Ranaut. We may find a regression analysis. This is Y, this is your schizophrenia. Is equal to a constant factor, the G, her genes, plus some factor 0.5, 0.7, anything. All the breakups, breakup 1 plus breakup 2, likewise. We may find a equation. This is nothing but regression. Through these kind of analysis, data collection is done in your diagnostic researches. We will see correlation and regression further, but just to keep it in your, put it in your mind. Then what else are its characteristic? Again, it can be done in your naturalistic or lab setting. Either in naturalistic setting or lab setting it can be done. Bring Kangana Ranaut in a lab, study her behavior or set her free to roam around. There also we can study the behavior, naturalistic setting. Then these researches are both exploratory or confirmatory. Exploratory and confirmatory. What does it mean? Exploratory research, when we don't have any hypothesis, we don't know why Kangana Ranaut became schizophrenic suddenly. We are exploring the factors. We don't have any hypothesis. We are looking at the possible factors which would have led to her schizophrenic behavior. Exploration, where no hypothesis is there, the researcher goes with an open mind. Researcher has an open mind. No hypothesis. All the data are explored. It is exploratory. That is, all the factors are explored. What all possible factors since childhood? What happened? What happened when she entered the Bollywood industry? What happened after that? In which movies she did well? What happened after? Whether she was following a particular producer or director? She was affected by a political ideology. She didn't have a godfather. All factors. Then it will be exploratory. But when we go with the hypothesis that probably the incidents which happened with Kangana Ranaut during her adolescence has made her schizophrenic, then we are going with a hypothesis, and our approach is to confirmatory. Our approach is confirmatory. We are confirming a hypothesis. That a bad youth probably resulted into schizophrenia. When we are going with the hypothesis and we have to confirm it or reject it, this is called your confirmatory approach. And these two approaches, exploratory and confirmatory, are nothing but two types of factor analysis which we have to study. Nothing but two types of factor analysis. And the hypothesis which we will assume in confirmatory is either accepted or either the null hypothesis will be rejected or accepted. And what is null hypothesis? Null hypothesis says that whatever we want to establish, we take a hypothesis against it. That bad youth had no effect on Kangana Ranaut as far as schizophrenia is concerned. And we are, as psychologists, we want to reject it. This is called skeptic approach, skepticism. Fine. So, what is the merit here? Merit is lay foundation for further research, because diagnosis has been done to a large extent. They are prescriptive also, because once you understand the causes, you can correct them. So they have lots of, firstly they have lots of heuristic impact. What is heuristic impact? They lay the foundation for further research. This is nothing but heuristic impact. Because of this research, another research will be done. This is heuristic. Then prescriptive in nature. These researches are prescriptive in nature because the underlying causes have been established. But the biggest demerit again here is definite cause and effect relationship cannot be established. Definite cause and effect relationship cannot be established. We come to another type of research, which is our prognostic. What is prognostic research? Prognostic research is nothing but what I call is Bill Gates approach. Corona happened in the end of 2019 and start of 2020. The world was suffering from the incidents of corona, a severe problem, a pandemic which changed the way we live our lives. It did show that nobody's life can be taken for granted. Even younger people died. So many respected, well-known teachers, even in the UPSC arena, those who are quite young, they unfortunately died in this corona. But the possibility of such an incident was told by Bill Gates much earlier. And Bill Gates even has done the foretelling that such incidents will keep on occurring because there are so many mutation of viruses. Likewise, the possibility of a problem. In the prognostic research, the researcher is looking at possibility, is forecasting about the possible occurrence of a problem. Researcher is foretelling about the possible occurrence of a problem. Possible occurrence of a problem, that this may occur, this may happen. The researcher is telling you that these are the problems which you may encounter later on. For example, how likely are children of Kangana Ranaut, how likely are children of Kangana Ranaut in case she marries someday? How likely are they to become schizophrenic? What is the possibility that the children of Kangana Ranaut may become schizophrenic? If she also, these are just hypothetical things, we don't know whether she is schizophrenic or not. So, how likely are children of Kangana Ranaut going to become schizophrenic? This is the study matter of prognostic research analysis, not diagnosis, not looking at something which has happened, but forecasting about the problem. See how it happens. Prognosis. Schizophrenia may happen. May happen. Schizophrenia happened. Diagnosis of its reason. It will lead to further prognosis because of the reasons. We know the reasons which led to schizophrenia. It may give you another prognosis. And how likely is it to happen in this case? Because of the incidents, because of the time spent by Hrithik Roshan with Kangana Ranaut, is he also likely to fall into the ditch of schizophrenia? Prognosis. Hrithik Roshan also becomes schizophrenic, then diagnosing the reasons. Then there will be the prognosis. Is Sabah Azad also going to be schizophrenic? This loop continues. This diagnosis prognosis loop continues, coming full circle. This continues in the research. Likewise, the pure research, which is done for the fun of research, and applied research, they also fuel each other. Pure research leads to applied research and applied research leads to pure research. They also support and fuel each other. For example, an applied research was done in case of Hawthorne studies, where it was found that informal groups are more effective than the formal groupism. Informal groups are far more effective than the formal groups. And applied research. Now a researcher will come and see the different characteristics of formal and informal group, may find a different factor because of which the informal groups perform better. The research done for the sake of research, that is pure research, and applied research led to pure research, or a pure research done to see whether mere exposure effect works or not in all cultures may lead to an applied research, that whether mere exposure effect works in old Rajendra Nagar area or not, whether it works more in old Rajendra Nagar area or Mukherjee Nagar area. These kind of one research leading to other, these activities are a common phenomena in disciplines like psychology. Now, what are the characteristics of prognostic research? Firstly, as we have seen, the major focus is how likely is some problem to occur. In Indian society, every astrologist, or in fact anyone who knows a bit of astrology, is a prognostic researcher. The researcher will say this is going to happen. Likewise, the Jyotishiji, he will also say you are going to face this problem, that problem, Rahu Ketu, this approach. They are doing it in a faulty manner because the planets they are studying about, they have moved their positions. They are not doing the accurate calculations. So the scientific evidence of the astrology as followed by most of the people is completely faulty. Prognosis is that how likely is it going to occur, but psychology does it in a scientific manner. Then the second characteristics of prognostic research. What is the method of study here? Longitudinal study. What is the example of longitudinal study? As we have seen, twin studies by Bouchard and McGee. Which established that in case of intelligence, IQ, heredity plays a major role than environment. If you are genetically endowed with better genes, you will be having a higher IQ. If you are genetically endowed with better genes, you will have a better command over language also. That's a harsh reality of life. Then again, it can be done in lab or a natural setting. Both. Then it is also exploratory and confirmatory, both in nature. It is exploratory and confirmatory both. What are its merits? The foremost merit being it is again prescriptive, because it is telling you how likely is the problem going to occur, and that's why telling you as well that how to correct it. If you know how likely it is to occur, you will correct it. If you do a structural analysis of your building, then you find that through the structural audit that the materials, raw material used for the building or construction of the building is faulty, then you will be more careful when the earthquake comes, or you will avoid living in the higher floors of the building. So it is prescriptive in nature. The biggest merit. Second is helps a lot in applied research. The prognostic research, since it is going to prescribe you that how likely the problem is going to occur, it leads to various applied researches. since you know that how likely is it going to be a problem of schizophrenia, how likely is it going to be a problem of earthquake, you will do researches, applied researches more often. Then the demerits. See, what was the method of study here? Longitudinal. So in the longitudinal study, when a set of children, as it was done in the marshmallow experiment, when some children who were showing delayed gratification in their young age became more successful, we are not taking into account the variance brought by the time factor. Variance brought by maturation and the time factor is not taken into account. What does it mean? You studied the children for quite a long period of time. But what about the effects which is brought because of this duration of the study? Many other things would have happened in their life which led to their success or failure. Are you going to take into account those factors? As when we do the development psychology, we'll study the twin studies, we'll realize that how the twin studies are affected by these factors. These factors are not taken into account. That is why the study becomes faulty. And the prognostic research done in this manner does not lead to objective generalizations. That is, the study is done through longitudinal study method, like twin study or study done in the marshmallow experiment regarding the delayed gratification or the correlation of delayed gratification with success. These cannot be generalized, these cannot be universalized, because these were done in a particular context. And when it cannot be generalized and universalized, it becomes faulty. It does not solve the problems of universalization, which is important if we have to give the discipline of psychology a title of scientific discipline. So with this, we cover the diagnostic, prognostic, evaluative and descriptive type of researches. Tomorrow will be the holiday, and as the classes of psychology have remained a bit disturbed, now since the Dashara will be over tomorrow, after that we will continue with our pace and cover the chapters in detail with interest. With shorter version of classes also will be doing much better. Thank you very much for joining. Good night. We'll meet day after tomorrow.